Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy Idol here, and today we're going to look over my matchup earlier today for Doubles Premier League Black and White Doubles Overused against Mishimono. The matchup here is GOTH versus Sand Good Stuffs, basically, is what it is. And yeah, you're looking at it right. I used GOTH for the second week in a row. I'm tired of the games. I'm tired of getting screwed around by facing enemy GOTH. I decided, okay, I'm playing this game now. I'm getting disbanded, and I'm just spamming GOTH now, I guess. And yeah, this is kind of similar to the team I used last week. The team I used last week had an Amung over Scrafty, but yeah, this is the more offensive version of the GOTH. I think the more annoying version of GOTH is the one with Pharaoh, right? Because Pharaoh is just too much of a really polarizing mon when it's in rain, and it has trapper support with GOTH, right? However, the more offensive version, the more I say this in air quotes, but the more fair version, it's not really fair. It's still kind of whack, but the more fair version is this version with Scrafty and well, not Scrafty specifically, but the one with Yenisect, with Genesect, right? Which is it's basically a more offensive version, a more forcing version that uses GOTH with the strong attackers, in this case Thunderous, Genesect, and Kingdra, in order to force kills, and basically all the three attackers that I just mentioned play around each other and force winning positions. Basically, that's a really general way of putting it. Well, and you will see how they basically take advantage of GOTH's presence to force kills and punch holes through the enemy team. Mishimono, meanwhile, it's basically kind of standard. Rotom Wash is not common in Black and White Doubles Overused. However, I do think it's good because it has a good matchup into it has a good matchup into Jellicent, it has a good matchup into Metagross, Landorus T. If it's Spadef, it's good in terrain as well, and it also has access to stuff like Wisp. It can run Thunder Wave, but you're not if you just want Thunder Wave, you probably run Thunderous, even not counting the water typing, just because of how strong Prankster Thunder Wave is into Latios. But I digress. Rotom Wash is also good into into Heatran, which Metagross will appreciate. But yeah, Rotom Wash, good Pokemon. Togekiss is also an interesting pick. I brought it myself in my very ill-fated game against Wobbuffet, where my Kyurem B outraged into a Ferrothorn like 5 times or something. Yeah, that game was the catalyst for me becoming the villain that I am, bringing two Gothtel teams the next 2 weeks following that. That was the game that started it all, basically. But going back to Togekiss, really good Pokemon, especially if it's Fizz Def, right? It can one thing that it can do is that it can match Genesect, right? Of course, remember, Black and White Doubles Overused, it's not Fairy type, it's just normal flying. So with Fizz Def, it doesn't necessarily take Iron Head well, but it can take U-turns quite well, and well enough, I suppose. It also has access to stuff like Flamethrower. It can Flamethrower like Metagross. It can Flamethrower Genesect, it can Flamethrower Ferrothorn. It also has access to Encore, so it can Encore Metagross if it like subs or something, I don't know. And yeah, one more thing about FM, right? FM in Gen 5 is +3 in priority, so it can actually follow me fake outs from Scrafty, which is really handy in this in the present environment, and really handy in this matchup in particular, because my Scrafty is actually not kind of not useful as a lead, especially or in positions where they have Togekiss up, because their Togekiss can simply follow me the fake out away. Since fake out and follow me have the same priority bracket, the Togekiss can just FM the fake out onto itself and keep its partner safe from flinching. Which is, yeah, that's really good. It's also it could be good into Hitmontop, but most Hitmontops in Black and White are max speed. So it actually won't be able to redirect Fake Out from Scrafty, or rather from Hitmontop, because the Hitmontop would end up having the faster Fake Out than the Follow Me, so that's annoying. Oh, also, one more thing. The Follow Me being +3 is also actually useful for E-Speed, because E-Speed is +2, FM is +3. E-Speed beating redirection is something that we see more often in XY. For example, Among Us versus CBG matchups where the Among Us can't redirect the E-Speed. In BW, redirection basically beats E-Speed and redirects E-Speed, so that's another useful thing to have for redirectors in general. But yeah, Togekiss, good Pokemon if it's max Fizdef. It has Flamethrower for Metagross. And it's also really annoying in general. Also, Super Luck plus Flamethrower can actually be funny sometimes, but yeah. And that's the gist of Mishimono's team. Yeah, pretty much I just play this by ear, mostly because, like, the Lando could be Scarf, the T-Tar could be Scarf, the Rotom Wash could be Scarf, the Togekiss could be Scarf too. I considered it, honestly, but yeah, I was just mostly playing it by ear, and the first few turns here were me just sussing out what Mishimono could have been. My team, meanwhile, well, it's basically everything that you could expect it to be. Like, the Toad is Eject. Like some GOTH Reigns mix up the Eject, right? Sometimes they run Scrafty Eject and Toad with something, I don't like Scarf Specs, stuff like that. But again, no, in this team, I just have a rather vanilla configuration of Eject on Toad, Citrus on this guy, on the Scrafty. I like Life Orb over Water Gem on Kingdra, but I guess honestly it's kind of a preference thing, really. I just really like Life Orb more. The Thundurus is Gem, Electric Gem. I have a GOTH, and this is obviously CBG, Choice Band, Genesect, and that's pretty much it, really. I just mostly play this by ear. Then let's head on over to the game. Okay, so Scrafty plus Genesect lead. This is an interesting lead for me because, well, I honestly am considering the possibility that this Togekiss is Scarf, or rather, yeah, it is Scarf, and it could just Flamethrower my Genesect out. Well, at the same time, my Scrafty is kind of useless because, again, as I mentioned, FM +3, Fake Out +3, Togekiss can just redirect the Fake Out away. So I really didn't want to end up faking out. At the same time, I also consider that my Genesect is obviously in a very bad position because it's the Latios can actually just freely attack with. And because of the support from Togekiss, right? It can just HP fire my Genesect without fear of Fake Out plus U-turn on its way, because the Togekiss is handily protecting it. So yeah, I basically, what I do here is I just hard switch out. Well, I'll show you right now. Yeah, it was a really fast turn here. I just hard switch out onto Politoed. The reason I wanted to go Politoed here is because, well, for one, it's good into HP Fire, right? From possible Latios. It's good into possible Scarf Flamethrower from Togekiss. But even though that's kind of unlikely, I decided to just, it's also, if I'm already watching out for Latios in this position, I might as well also consider the possibility of Togekiss, right? Of Scarf Togekiss, right? It's just, it's playing safe into two things at once, essentially, is what kind of how I'm describing it, really. So yeah, Toad good into those possible fire moves, and I just, instead of faking out, the Fake Out will end up being useless into Togekiss anyway. I just hard crunch onto the Latios here, which whiffs. Well, it doesn't whiff, it just hits into a Protect. An interesting Protect from Mishimono there. But works out in their favor. Let's also look at the switch priority here. Defragment the Genesect switches out first before the Togekiss on Mishimono's side, right? So that means one, well, It's 1 point really. That means the Genesect is indeed faster than the Togekiss. The Togekiss is indeed the Follow Me version that's probably bulky. It's IE, it's not Scarf. Because my Genesect switched faster than it. Switch speed actually is ordered by whatchamacallit. It's ordered by the speed stat as well, right? So that's one way to get information. However, I didn't actually consider this info. I should have considered this info, or rather, I should have noted this info. But in game, actually, I didn't actually notice this. It's only something I reviewed post game, actually. But yeah, this is something that it's good to know, right? Anyway, but I then end up having a Toad on the field. It's eject button, but unlucky for me. Well, it's not totally unlucky, but I wanted to have the tempo of having the eject. But I ended up not getting it because the Latios didn't attack, right? So in this position, I then switch out onto GOTH, right? The Landorus didn't really want to stay in, I suppose, because of the Politoed, and Mishimono just opting to get the rain up immediately, which is fair, or rather the sand up immediately, and to win the Weather War, which is fair. I switched this Toad out. I really needed this alive, and I did not want this taking a Dragon Gem Draco Meteor, right? So Politoed goes out, I go into Gothitelle, and the Latios ends up psychicking the Gothitelle here, and now I look like a beast because I have Scrafty plus Gothitelle into their Tyranitar, essentially trapping it, right? And the Latios is also trapped, facing a Scrafty, right? While I basically get a really safe switch onto my Gothitelle here. So yeah, I basically just end up looking like the GOAT here. I didn't actually go out of my way to trap the Tyranitar, but this ends up being a very fortunate sequence of events for me. So now I'm going to low kick the Tyranitar with my fighting move to essentially win the Weather War. At the same time, I didn't want my Gothitelle taking a Draco Meteor from the Latios, well, or a Crunch from the Tyranitar. So I switch onto Toad again, attempting to get tempo with my eject button. As much as possible, you want to use your eject button, especially with these kinds of rain teams, right? With that have Gothitelle, that have Genesect, that have U-turn Genesect, that have Thunderous, that have you want to use your eject button in order to gain tempo so that you have a safe switch onto your attackers. That's also kind of safe because the Politoed already ended up taking the attack for them. So this is what I attempted again on. If I didn't mind this Politoed taking a Draco now, especially since it's Life Orb, right? It's not Gem. So it's less likely to die in this position, right? Or rather, it's less likely to get super crippled, right? In this game. So I'm more willing to take a Life Orb Draco than a Dragon Gem Draco, is what I'm essentially trying to say with my Politoed, and I switched Politoed here to take that Draco. However, Latios does end up just Dracoing my Scrafty. I am Citrus Berry though, so I end up going back to 40. And my Politoed, what will happen to it? I get the switch that I really wanted with my eject button. And this is why eject button is really good, right, guys? Like, it ended up, like, sure, the Latios didn't attack the Toad, but the Tyranitar attacking the Toad basically gives me a free switch onto a strong attacker in this board. At the same time, again, as I mentioned, I wanted this Tyranitar weakened or killed in order to win the Weather War, or in order to immediately win the Weather War, right? And it ends up not being Chople but living anyway. I did check the calc. I knew that it likely was going to live, since, like, I know the calc is somewhere along the lines of maybe 95, something like that, like 90. Depends on the book, but yeah, Tyranitar definitely had a chance of living that. In this board though, I end up just going to Genesect on this board. Versus -1 Latios, it wasn't really fearing anything, especially with HP Fire gone, right? Let's go back. Rather, especially with Rain up, right? Also -2. I'm bad. It's -2. Rain is up. I do not need to respect HP far from the Latios. I also just want Genesect to U-turn onto this Tyranitar. I didn't really feel the need to E-speed, especially since this Latios is already very low and very ignorable, right? So in this board, I just go U-turn onto the Tyranitar, which then switches, which is fine with me. On the Scrafty slot, I wanted to preserve the Fake Out. Even if it's this low, I thought the Scrafty was still useful as a body with Fake Out even later into the game, and yeah, I was just generally able to preserve it either way. So I just go on to GOTH here in this case. Yeah. Because it can easily also live a -2 Draco Meteor from Life Orb Latios. Like, I knew this Latios is either going to try to HP fire and get chip onto Genesect or trying to finish the Scrafty, right? So I just go to Gothitail here. The Gothitail eats that Draco like a beast. And now I basically, with the U-turn, yeah, this is how you use GOTH Rain to the fullest, right? You try to use your positioning. You try to use your HP as a resource, I suppose. That's one way to put it. And your in combination with your pivot moves and with your eject button in order to get favorable positions, in order to force kills. And this is what happens, and I get Kingdra Gothitail onto Landorus T Latios. This Landorus T ends up being a lame duck right now. It absolutely ends up being useless in this game, and Muddy Water is going to end up cleaning this Landorus up. And Landorus T being down is really, really good for me because it means that I don't have to respect Intimidate from Landorus T anymore with my Genesect, and I also don't have to respect a Scarf set while playing with my Thundurus, which is really, really... It means it basically activates 2 of my main attackers, and so yeah, forcing this kill onto the Landorus is very, very strong for me, and this is why also Gothitail is kind of BS as a Pokemon. It's just able to force having your checks to certain Pokemon just completely eliminated when switching is essentially a huge part of the game, and being able to preserve certain parts of your team, certain members of your team in order to deal with other threats. That's such an integral way to playing fundamental Pokemon, right? And having Gothitail to basically say no to that, to basically deny that option in the straight up is really, really powerful. And now Mishimono is forced in a bad spot. Rotom Wash, of course, good into Kingdra, but any other Pokemon that Mishimono sends out is in a really tough spot. And in this position, I end up helping hand Hydro Pumping the Togekiss. The Togekiss in this position reveals that it is indeed Max Fizdef, because if it's Spadef, it actually can take that. So with HH Hydro, that Togekiss just drops. Any Pokemon that went in this that could have went in that slot actually drops, but Togekiss ends up being the sacrificial lamb. Tyranitar goes into this spot. Rotom Wash. It's of I actually am not sure what set this is yet. It could easily be Scarf. Either way though, I have to stay in. I didn't really need to switch it out much anymore. I could have went to Scrafty if I really wanted, but I didn't think it was absolutely necessary. I could have gotten value out of that getting Intimidate onto Tyranitar though, but I was also killing it with Muddy Water anyway, so like, why water, right? The Muddy Water misses onto the T-Tar, however, it doesn't necessarily matter too much. It sucks, of course, but it is what it is, I thought. And the Rotom Wash also reveals that it is indeed not Scarf. It's a bulkier set because it ends up being slower than my Kingdra. So basically with this, I just go this, and I basically try to simplify the position by trying to U-turn the Tyranitar out of the game. And Streamline the Politoed here basically is going to aim a Scald at the Metagross, and which should break the sub. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, the reason why I do it this way instead of trying to U-turn a Metagross is just, again, to simplify the position. We just want to eliminate Mishimono's plays by basically removing Pokemon from the equation. So if Tyranitar dies, that's good. If Mishimono switches out the Tyranitar or protects, it's kind of whatever, right? It's not like Metagross is doing anything to Toad or Genesect. And if Tyranitar ends up switching, it means that the Rotom Wash is taking a CB U-turn to the face, which is also annoying. And I then get a free switch onto Thundurus into a protecting Metagross, which is obviously also really good for me. Or rather, not into a protecting Metagross, into a protected Metagross, which means that after a Pokemon protects, you can basically just force attacks onto it, right? That's a fundamental principle of Pokemon of doubles play, right? Once a Pokemon protects, it can't protect anymore, or at least it can't protect as reliably. So your attacks into that slot are more safe, or they're essentially near guaranteed to work. And that Metagross slot taking an E-Gem Thunder it's not really going to end well for Mishimono, right? So yeah, again, in this position, simplify the position, simplify the board. The Metagross protects, I just go to Thundurus and I Scald this. And on this position, I just elect to HH Thunder the Rotom Wash to basically force the kill, guarantee that it dies. It's not as if Metagross is doing anything to this and this, right? And that basically is the game here. Just quick, simple, just fundamental playing with my positioning. And yeah, it is what it is. Thanks for watching.